Hi there, welcome back to the series on creating a Laravel Voyager financial website. I'm Dorothy Golden, and in this session we are going to mainly focus on setting up Voyager within our Laravel application. So let's get started. So before installing Voyager, it is very important to take a quick moment to learn what it is and what it isn't. So you can go through it, but generally, Voyager is an admin interface for your Laravel app and an easy way to add, edit, delete data for your application. And also it does provide a menu builder, then a media manager for your files. Then it has a CRUD or bread generator that you can always work with. And it's not a blogging platform either, and not a WordPress system either. But it can be used to create a content management system or a blogging platform, etc. So you can always go through that. So before installing Laravel Voyager, make sure that you have installed one of the following: Laravel 8 or 9. And I do believe that even Laravel 10 works well. So we can move into the installation. So regarding the installation, the fact that we already have our new Laravel application, we just have to go ahead and copy this command and paste it in the terminal. So once the installation has been successful, the version of Voyager that has been installed will also be displayed, and for my case it is version 1.7. and having installed that, you must skip the part for creating the database because you already set up the database configuration. And now we have to move on to installing Voyager into the project. And you can always install it without dummy data, or you can also choose to install it with dummy data. So I'm going to work with this in that I am not working with any data. So I will go ahead and copy that command and then paste it here. So when you run PHP Artisan Voyager install, it goes ahead and publishes the assets. Then it creates the database files and configuration files that we need for Voyager, and also some CDAs. So it does migrate the database tables into our application, and these are the default tables that Voyager works with. And also it sets up our user model as the parent Voyager model, and it also does add the Voyager routes to the web.php file. So we can click this. So you can go ahead and open this file by typing web.routes, and this is Voyager. And in terms of the user model, you can see that it has also ensured that our user model is inheriting from the Voyager class. Then it goes ahead and publishes all the configuration assets, and then it also does seeding of the database. So there are some default seeders that are already added. For example, the data type seeder, the menu table seeder, the roles, and etc. So once all that is done successfully, then Voyager has been installed. And yes, that's pretty much it in terms of what that command does. So once that is done, we can start up our development server and access it by using the admin route. So since our project was already running, I'm just going to add a /admin route. And here we go. So this is the default admin login page for Voyager, and we do not have any admin user set. So if we try to log in, you can see that the credentials are invalid. So before logging into the admin dashboard, you must have created an admin user. And since we do not work with any dummy data, we have to run this command by typing PHP Artisan Voyager admin, then the details of our admin. So I'm going to work with this in that our email address for the admin is financial site at email.com, then the flag for creating. So I'll go ahead and copy this up and paste it here. So now when you run the command, you're going to be prompted to enter the admin name. So the admin name, I'm going to work with financial site. Then the password, I'll enter a simple password. Then I'll go ahead and confirm the password. Then once that is done, our admin account will be created successfully, and we can now use this for logging into the admin dashboard. First of all, when you confirm our database, we must be able to see this admin user. And remember, we migrated the Voyager tables as well, automatically having run the Voyager install command, and these are the default tables that it works with. We have the menus, the menu items, and the roles. So I'm interested in the users, and you can see that having we successfully created the admin user, a role has been assigned to this admin user, then the name of the admin, which is this financial site at email.com, then there is a default avatar image, then the password has been hashed for security purposes. And in case we check out the roles, we do have two roles currently. We have the admin role or the administrator role, and then the normal user role. So my user has been assigned a role of the admin. So therefore, I'll go ahead and log into this dashboard and then pass in the password. And I'll ensure that this is remembered, then I'll go ahead and log in. So regarding the dashboard, we are being told that to view the analytics, you need to get a Google Analytics client ID and add it to your settings for the key of the Google Analytics client ID. And you can get the key in your Google Developer Console. We can do that later. But in terms of the dashboard, by default, these are the menu items. We always have the roles, and you can see that Laravel Voyager has already created a user interface for the roles, and with all the CRUD functionalities, starting from the one of reading, you can see that we already have the roles that were already set up in our database being displayed here, and we can view. This is the role for the administrator, and we can also edit according to the permissions that can be assigned for this role. And in case you wanted to add any other new role, we can also add the role. For example, if this is just a role for testing, and maybe the display name to be testing as well, then for each new role that we want to create, we must always add the permissions. So for example, if this is a testing role, that means that we can just ensure that maybe the testing role can only have the ability of maybe browsing the menus and maybe browsing the admin parts, and maybe also browsing the roles, and maybe browsing the users. But in case you wanted this role to have all the permissions, you can select this at once. And if we do not want the testing role to maybe have ability of deleting or adding, then you can leave the checkbox empty or unchecked. So you therefore click on submit. So you can see that automatically we have created the testing role, and we haven't even worked with the controllers to set up the functionality. In other words, Laravel Voyager automatically handles that, and we can also delete this role. Are you sure you want to delete this role? Then yes. Then it automatically refreshes, and then we have a flash message, successfully deleted the role. Then we also have user management by default, and the attributes that it provides for the user. We always have the name, the email created at timestamps, then the default avatar image. We shall handle the image displaying later, then the role. So each user is always assigned a role. That is why you're seeing the role relationship here. And we can also edit this user details. For example, if we want to maybe update the name or the password, and then by default it handles localization. Then in terms of the media, it always provides a media manager for all the images that we are going to work with. So we can always have images stored in here. You can have the ability of adding folders, moving and then deleting. So currently we have the folder for users. You can also create one, maybe for testing purposes, and we save this as testing. So all the files, all the images that are going to be, all the images that we are going to work with are going to be stored within the media manager. And when I click into this, we can always have some images or some files added here. And then in terms of the tools, so Voyager always provides tools in terms of the menu builder. So we can always create a menu builder for the menu items, but by default we always have the admin menu builder, which can also be editable, or we can also add in some other features or some other items, and we can also still customize. So for example, this is the default one. Now if I wanted to maybe have the user management menu item, I can go ahead and, for example, click on user management, for example, and then it can either be a static URL or a dynamic one. So by default I'll leave it to static, and then you can also go ahead and provide font icon classes and then the colors. And then if you also want to navigate, if we click on this menu item, do you want it to be navigating to the same tab or a new tab? So we can leave that there. Then you click on add. So any new item that is always added is going to be displayed at the bottom. And when I try to refresh the menu, this is what we have, and we can have this updated, for example, such that we have the user management, in that the roles are part of the user management. So you can always drag and drop according to the layout that you want. So roles and users has been added under the user management, and then it automatically saves. So when I refresh, you can see that we are having the user management menu item here. And now the fact that it does not have any icon, then we can also update the icon, and we can still make use of the icons for Voyager. For example, Voyager person, and when you right click and open up the other window for the icons, you can see that Voyager also provides a number of icons that you can work with depending on what you want to achieve. So those are the Voyager font classes that can be reused within your project. And in this one, we can keep it precise by updating our user management such that it has the font icon class for persons. I believe it exists. Let's confirm. So we can control find and check out. So we have Voyager people. So I can have that copied. And instead of Voyager person, we can work with Voyager people. Then we update. So once that has been updated, you can see that the icon is now displaying. And when we open our drop down, we have the roles. Then we have the users sectioned under the user management. Then still in the tools, we also have a database helper tool. And with the database tool, we can always use it to create different tables for our database. And we can always edit, view, delete these tables. And we can also add ability to browse, read, edit add and delete content from our tables. So for example, if I create a new table for testing, you can click on create, then the default table name, for example, testing, and you are also asked if you want to create a model for this table, and since it is a testing model, we can let it be null. Then in terms of the number of columns, for example, by default each table always requires a primary key so that we enforce the entity integrity constraint. Then if you want to add a new column, we can go ahead and maybe, for example, add a new column like name, and you can always change the type. For example, if it is a string, we can have this updated to maybe text or virtual variable character. Then the length, for example, 255. Note now that is if the values for this field must be required. And unassigned, that is if, for example, it was an integer, we ensure that it has positive values. And then of course auto increment for the integers. Then the primary index, if for example you want to assign a unique constraint on this property. Then if that's all, you can also go ahead and add timestamps automatically, or you can also add some soft deletes such that it goes ahead and it creates a deleted at column for this item, in that content can be deleted from the UI, but within the database the content still exists but with a deleted at value. Then if that's all, then you can go ahead and create a new table. So this is the tool. So you can see that our testing table has been created, and in terms of bird, we can try to add some browse features, for example. So I'll click on add bird to the table. Then depending on what exactly you want to add, most of the times you can always update the input fields. For example, ID, if it was an integer, this can be updated to int or number actually. Then if we want to have it browsed and etc. So this is pretty much it, and we are going to be working with this feature so that we can create tables for our entities.